Hey everyone, today I'm in the middle of Blaine County, Oklahoma. This is outside of Gary, Oklahoma. And I wanted to show you this little cemetery and tell you a story, and it is super sad. So we really are in the middle of nowhere, down some dirt roads, in the middle of fields, right in the middle of Blaine County, Oklahoma. And see dirt roads and tall grass everywhere. This is a country cemetery. This is the North Family Cemetery, and we're going to go inside and tell a few stories that are sad and unfortunate. So this is just a little tiny family cemetery that's here, right down some country roads, but it is a nice little maintained cemetery. And there are several here that don't have markers, as you can see over there. And then there's some really nice markers here. Joe Charlie Jr., December 31st, 1965 to June 23rd, 2008. CNA Wildland Firefighter. Nice memorial marker. Many of them just don't have anything at all. Some just have funeral home markers, such as those right through there. But this is the one that we're here to see. And you can see up there on the cross, there's two cherubs. And it used to have painted on there, Cheryl and Lisa. You can see cherubs all the way down, some squirrels and chickens. And they were sisters. And it says Cheryl A. Genzer and Lisa M. Pennington. Cheryl was 5/20/62 to 10/20/87, and Lisa M. Pennington was 10/6/1970 to 10/20/1987. Just some young ones here. If I had only known, such a sad story that they have.
In 1987, two girls, Lisa Pennington, age 16, and Cheryl Genzer, age 25, went missing after leaving the Oklahoma State Fair. This became a huge story, and I can't help but think about them every time the fair rolls around each year. Lisa Pennington was a typical teenager. She loved music, and one of her favorite bands was Motley Crue. She had posters all over her room of different bands. She was also into fashion and makeup. She had dealt with scoliosis when she was younger, and she had to have surgery to correct it. This meant that she spent quite a while in a full cast, and she also had a scar going down her back to prove it. Cheryl Genzer was a young woman still trying to find her way in life. She had recently separated from her husband and was living with a friend at the time. She had been seeking new employment and was optimistic on what the future would hold for her. The two young women went to the Oklahoma State Fair with their brother and his girlfriend in the middle of the week. Their brother's girlfriend had to be home at 11 p.m. for her curfew, so he left the fair to take her home, but they all agreed to meet back up later at the Space Needle. When he returned to the fair, he couldn't find the girls anywhere, and they were never to be seen again. Now, Lisa and Cheryl were not left at the fair completely alone. They were hanging out with Lane Henley, age 31, who Cheryl knew through a friend, and also Doug Lawson, age 21, who was Henley's friend. Doug had been working at the fair and was giving them free rides on the monorail. The brother never saw the two men there either when he returned to the fair, and he eventually went home and told his mother and father. The family all hoped that the two women would eventually make their way home, but that never happened. Midweek turned into the weekend, and on Sunday, the family reported the missing women to the Oklahoma City Police. Initially, the police thought that the girls were runaways and left town with a friend to Mexico. But Charlotte and Rocky Pennington, who were the parents, knew that this wasn't the case. They stated that they left all their clothes and makeup, which was uncharacteristic behavior for them both. Neither was having issues with family, so it just didn't make sense for them to do that. In the time period before reporting the girls missing, the family was actively looking for them. The mother went around and spoke with all sorts of people, particularly Lane Henley, and he stated that Lisa and Cheryl had both been at his house that night, but they were perfectly fine when they left. Charlotte stated that Lane gave 3 different stories. Initially, he said the girls left his house walking, and then he changed it to someone coming to pick them up. Another version he stated said that they left to use the phone, which was odd considering that he actually had a phone in his place. After the young women were reported missing, the family then took up the task of posting flyers all over Britton, Oklahoma. This was an old town that has been annexed by Oklahoma City in the 1950s, but in the 1980s it was still very much a suburb of Oklahoma City. On October 20th, 1987, news of the girls' whereabouts was then discovered. A salesman was test driving an off-road vehicle with a customer when he found the girls' bodies in a shallow grave out in a field near the Britton area. The lower half of each body was exposed and they had been shot to death. Charlotte learned of her daughter's fate while watching television, and she instantly broke down in tears knowing it was her daughter's, even though there was never a name mentioned. The case really never moved much until about 3 years later when Lane Henley was charged with the murders. There was a star witness in the murder case, which was none other than Doug Lawson, the fair worker. What was interesting is that Doug provided an alibi for Lane just 2.5 years earlier. But now Doug was facing 3 felony charges involving drugs, and he was testifying as a witness in exchange for immunity on the drug charges. Doug went into great detail and explained how it all happened. Then evidence was collected from Lane's home. But in 1992, Doug recanted his testimony. He stated it was all a lie and he made it all up. Without him, the case fell apart, and Doug was arrested and pleaded guilty to perjury. Henley was then released and moved out of state to Roswell, New Mexico. In 2000, his girlfriend Molly Keehee, aged 35, went missing. She was later found in a shallow grave by the Pecos River about 15 miles outside of town. She had been shot in the head. Roswell police tried to build a case against Henley, but without any witnesses or evidence connecting him to the murder, he was never charged with that crime. In 2008, Henley, now aged 51, was living in Alamogordo, New Mexico, and his girlfriend Amy Maribal, aged 38, died in a trailer fire. Henley was hospitalized with smoke inhalation along with second and third degree burns. No signs of foul play was ever discovered, and police determined that it was a complete accident. This whole time, the parents and the brother were actively seeking answers. Charlotte, the girl's mother, even hired a private investigator to help out, and the two of them vigorously tried to solve the case. Both the mother and the father have since passed away without either of them finding out any answers on who was responsible for their daughter's murders. The private investigator, Dorian Quean, who was hired by the mother, has not forgotten about this case. She believes there is evidence that needs to be re-examined with new technology. Just some of the evidence includes earrings, jewelry, fingernails, clothing, and biological evidence that could all be retested. Dorian has maintained that the evidence was never thoroughly tested, and she wonders if somehow someone else's DNA would show up with modern testing. The Oklahoma City Police Department has not done this, and they do not believe that further testing will reveal any new suspects or clues. In fact, they've stated that it's really not that simple. In 2012, some police in a hotel room collected a confession from a daughter of a man the police once interviewed in connection with the murders. In her video statement, the woman said that the dad told her he killed the girls and then covered up the crime. One of the girls was raped and killed, and the other was kept alive for 2 days, getting raped and tortured. Police said that the confession never led to anything in their findings. But could the evidence collected back that statement up if DNA tests were done once again? This case has been featured on America's Most Wanted, and it is still an open case that is inactive. It's been 34 years now, and someone is clearly keeping it a secret. The police, private investigator, and the family still all believe that someone knows the truth. They also believe it very well could be someone in the Britton area. If you have any information that may lead to the possible arrest and/or conviction of those responsible, please contact the Oklahoma City Police Department or the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation.
So like I said, it is a small cemetery, and I really love these old country cemeteries like this. Stella North, there you can see the family name there. January 22nd, 1910 to July 18th, 1985. A Closer Walk with Thee. And you can see Josephine North Blindy, December 9th, 1907 to June 25th, 1980. So there are quite a few in here for this little bitty country cemetery. We've got Fletcher right there, Joseph Sr., and looks like Mercine North. They were married September 15th, 1913. Joseph was 1886 to 1957, and she was 1899 to 1954. So somehow I would imagine that all of these are related. Here we have some Norths right here. Henry D. North, 1867 to 1936. More Norths right here. Nancy Lee North, 1876 to 1937. And Mary L. North Howery, In His Hands Forever. Praying hands there, and TP on the right. October 27th, 1914 to June 19th, 1990. Beloved wife, mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. These are very personal monuments, and very beautiful countryside right out here. Nothing but grasshoppers and birds and wind out here. And this is a magnificent marker right here. October 6th, 1959 to December 15th, 2017. Wife and mother, Wild Angel, Alberta K. Dukai, if I'm saying that right. But just an angel holding on to the heart, embracing her. Very moving. This is an interesting one right here, next to this star. Historical marker right here. Mrs. Whitehorse, medicine woman, and there's a TP there, and it says 1851 to 1928, and this woman lived through some history. Some unbelievable history. Mother of Nancy Lee North, chips and women going uphill. Mrs. Whitehorse and her little brother Mixed Hair both survived the Sand Creek Massacre on November 29th, 1864. Her parents, Arapaho Bull Bear and Cheyenne Woman, were massacred there. Mrs. Whitehorse was well known as a healer, a medicine woman to all. You can kind of see that's just kind of the Sand Creek representation there on the left. Pretty interesting indeed. We have a hero here in my book, Henry North Jr., veteran of World War I, April 26th, 1896 to April 9th, 1926. So he didn't live too much longer after the end of the war there. Like I said, there are a lot of graves in here that you do not see markers for, but they are certainly remembered. This is the back side of that big tall cross there. You can see angels that were made out of wood. Very loving tribute to a sad story here in Oklahoma. Thanks for joining me today as we paid our respect to Lisa and Cheryl. It is a sad, unfortunate story that should have never happened. And the unfortunate thing is that justice really hasn't been served. I appreciate you all watching, and we'll see you guys next time.